The voice you just heard is always saying more cool stuff about me than I deserve to have said, but I appreciate him for it, man. Sometimes it makes my shoulders go back a little bit and my chin up a little bit. So he's the R in the QR code. He goes by the name Ramses Ja.
And be sure to stick around because later in the show, we're going to be talking about whether or not the NFL is to blame for Trump's presidency. We're going to spend some time in our entertainment segment talking about that. We're also going to be talking about a mass shooting event in Pennsylvania that claimed the lives of 3 police officers. But right now, it is time to hear from Q Ward telling us how every MAGA accusation seems to be a confession. Q?
Today, I want to talk to ourselves, to each other, to our listener, about one of the most predictable patterns that I've picked up in American politics. Regarding the right especially, and I mean without equivocation, every accusation that they make is actually a confession. If you want to know what MAGA's up to, just tune in and listen to what they're accusing everybody else of doing. It's not projection by accident. It's projection by design. I think I told Rams before I had a bully in elementary school who would hit me and then run and tell the teacher I did it. Mm-hmm. It's just the way that he did things, and watching adults behave like petulant, bullied children is becoming the norm. So let's lay this out. They accuse the left of being corrupt while they funnel money through back channels and inside deals. They accuse teachers of indoctrinating children while they ban books and rewrite history to fit their specific ideology. They accuse immigrants of stealing elections while they're the ones purging voter rolls and suppressing ballots. Ramses, are you starting to pick up on the pattern here?
Oh, yeah. I've known it for some time.
The playbook: blame the other side for your sins. So when you get caught, the waters are already so muddied that who knows the difference? So here's some examples. Election fraud. They scream, "Stop the steal," while the president literally tried to steal the 2020 election, pressuring Georgia officials, plotting fake electors, and pushing an actual insurrection. Crime and corruption. They call Democrats criminals, while Donald Trump and his circle rack up indictments like frequent flyer miles. Oh, and convictions. Very important data there. They say that the LGBTQ community are threats to children and that they're grooming them, while actual scandals are happening in churches, behind Republican doors, and even elected officials are caught in abuse cases. They say Biden would use the DOJ as a weapon, while Trump truly does it, openly promising to persecute his enemies, pardon loyalists, and turn justice into his personal hit squad. They scream, Ramses, for free speech. They cry about being censored, while they're the ones banning books, targeting teachers, silencing protest, and getting rid of, talk show hosts who might crack a joke about them. Every single accusation, a confession. Projection, if you will. But Rams, why does projection work so well, might you ask? Because it's not just that they're being hypocrites. This is flatly strategy. Projection confuses the public. It makes people think everybody's corrupt, everybody's lying. So when they convince you not to believe anything and that there are no facts, then it's very, very easy for accountability to get lost in the noise. And for their base, it's a loyalty test, Rams. They'll believe anything as long as it means protecting their tribe. It's like gaslighting, except the whole country's doing it. Here's why it matters so much to me and why I wanted to talk about it today. When every accusation is a confession, It's not just irony. It's cover for the real harm that's either happening or is to come. It's how they justify taking away rights by using fear, undermining democracy, and turning violence into policy. They create a mirror maze where the truth looks like lies, lies look like the truth, and in that confusion, they grab more and more power. Because you know who's paying attention when both sides are bad. Ramses and I very frustratingly wrestled with that idea during the elections when everyone was trying to both sides everything, when there's clearly a difference here, clearly a very, very false equivalence being made. So Ramses asked me to clap back. If you want to know what MAGA is doing, listen to what they are accusing someone else of. Every shout of corruption, crime, steal, or censorship is just them describing to you their own intentions or their own reflection. Every accusation is a confession. And once you notice this pattern, trust me, you will not be able to unsee it. This is not just politics, folks. It's pathology. And it's time to start calling it what it is. Ramses, confuse and scare the people. Make yourself the only remedy, and you'll find it very, very easy to control them.
Well, you're not wrong. We have covered that quite a bit. And I think that's part of the reason why we were talking earlier. That's part of the reason why I like to go to such great lengths to make sure that there's some accountability so that it's not misconstrued that I'm using their tactic. If anything, it shows that their tactic is flawed and it's not thorough, and that I'm playing an honest game where they are playing a dishonest game. So here's all the cards. I'm not holding anything off of the table. And if we can deal with the real, we'll make some real progress. But I think that on that side, a lot of folks are afraid to do that. So
I guess the reason why I always call it out is because we're the only ones that do it. We're lending all this grace and trying to play by all these rules and do the right thing.
Yeah, and they don't.
They're not at all.
But that's why you're here, because you know how to press it, and I appreciate that, and I love you for that. All right, let's talk about this mass shooting in Pennsylvania that claimed the lives of 3 officers. So this is from PBS.org. A suspected stalker armed with a rifle hid at his ex-girlfriend's home in the rolling farmland of southern Pennsylvania and ambushed police officers who came to arrest him, killing 3 of them. A prosecutor said Thursday. Police arriving at the scene at about 2:10 p.m. Wednesday noticed the door to the home was unlocked, even though the ex-girlfriend and her mother had locked it before leaving the property for their safety. They opened the door and were immediately fired upon by the suspect, 24-year-old Matthew James Ruth, who was carrying an AR-style rifle with a suppressor, York County District Attorney Tim Barker said. Okay, real quick before I continue on. Only thing I saw about this guy was a picture. Only thing I know about this guy is from the articles that I've read. Based on where he is, rural Pennsylvania, I'd been there. I went there for the Jack and Jill event. So, southern Pennsylvania or whatever. Jack and Jill of America. It's like almost like a boys and girls club sort of thing for young black people, students and whatnot. Anyway, knowing that part of the country, it feels like Trump country. AR style weapon feels like, it feels like what it is. Of course, I can't say for certain, but I need to make a bigger point, so I wanted to stop here to kind of delineate these elements of the story so that they stand out in your mind. Okay. He said the suspect fired multiple rounds at the 4 officers at the door, killing 3 of them. A gunfight then ensued between Roth and 2 officers outside. Ruth wounded a sheriff's deputy before police shot the gunman to death, Barker said. Detective Sergeant Cody Becker, Detective Mark Baker, and Detective Isaiah Imhiser were the officers who were killed. He said they all worked for the Northern York County Regional Police Department. Quote, each of these men represented the best of policing. They served with professionalism, dedication, and courage. They were leaders within our agency committed to protecting this community and standing beside their fellow officers, unquote. Chief Dave Lash said of the 3 slain Northern York Regional Police officers. Investigators later found the ex-girlfriend's dog had been shot dead in the basement. Okay. If I may, I know I've been kind of going first a lot on the show, but I've been sitting with these stories. First off, this is heartbreaking. I have been in the past and will continue to be very critical of policing, the way policing is done in this country. I don't like it. And until it changes, I won't like it. With that said, I respect the fact that these are human beings, and that I'm one of the people that believes almost to a fault that people can change. People can learn new things. People can evolve. It doesn't seem to be the case with current training procedures and whatnot. You know, I think that this country needs a racial reckoning. The fault of the individual officers, that's not the fault of the human beings that lost their lives here. So I want to make sure that I acknowledge that these were people that deserve to grow old and deserve the opportunity to find the why, the evolution, the change. But I think that this story has been swallowed up because of the oxygen of obviously the headlines of the past couple weeks, and or the oxygen going to really one major headline. But also, I don't know that a lot of people really want to confront a story like this because of the optics. There is a gun problem, and there's more than just, you know, Charlie Kirk, the last thing that he was talking about was gang violence, right? And I think a lot of people think that gang violence is something that you can conflate with the gun problem. And to an extent, I believe that to be true. But gang violence tends to be isolated, you know, this gang versus that gang, or this individual versus that individual. And granted, there are people that lose their lives there, and this is a problem that we've been working on and combating for a long time as a people and as a country. You know, nobody should be killed needlessly, right? But I think that over the years, we've been able to identify a number of reasons that gang violence has been prevalent, not the least of which is a lack of economic opportunities outside of gang life. You know, nobody's a little kid and is like, you know, it'd be dope if I could be a gangbanger or if I could sell drugs. You know, that's not realistic. That's not how, you know, people come up in those environments. That's just kind of like, well, I can keep being hungry, living with all these roaches, or I can get the money like these other people I see getting money. I'm not tall. I'm not going to the NBA. I'm not a good rapper. I can't even stay awake in school because I'm hungry or sleepy or whatever. And that's the reality for a lot of people. So they end up being a product of their environment. But to conflate that with the larger gun issue that we talk about, the one that kind of we share in the cultural zeitgeist, the mass shooting gun issue, the suicide gun issue, that gun issue, it's hard for people to confront that head on. And so they use things like what's in the headlines right now as a shield. And they ignore stories like this, where indeed we're looking at another mass shooting event that took the lives of 3 police officers. I chose this story intentionally because everybody, you know, all of them, they love police, right? First, they're heroes and whatnot. You know, I push back against that idea. I think they're paid to do their job. And when they do something heroic, I'm the first to say they're a hero. But when they're doing their job, they're doing the job. But, you know, that part of the country really does love these folks. And I've noticed a silence that is deeply unsettling. And I think it's because a significant part of the country is afraid to look in the mirror, because when they look in the mirror, they're going to see who's doing these killings that suck all the oxygen out of the headlines. And again, it's not gang violence. Gang violence doesn't affect these people because, again, gang violence is singular. It affects the data, sure. But It doesn't make you afraid to walk around in the mall, right? So I want you to have more time here, Q, than I've given you elsewhere on the show. Please, your thoughts.
I wish I could whisper on the radio because it's the guns. Mm-hmm. Like, we keep trying to do like trigonometry and deep philosophy and geometry and calculus and all these different studies and sciences and forms of math and algebra to determine what might be the real problem here. And if we just be quiet for a second and if we just sit down.
Just sit down.
It's the guns. Like, I know before they describe it that they're going to say it's an AR-15. I know it. I know it every time. I also, unfortunately, know exactly, because in almost every case, the shooter, how they're going to describe. And even here, right, because this is one of those things that puts the right in a bit of a pretzel and a bit of a, confusing space when their worlds collide in this way. When the protect the guns and back the blue people are the same people, this turns into a really, really confusing discussion to try to have with your base and your constituents who want to know, what are we going to do about the armed guys with AR-15s who are shooting and killing police officers? So I don't have a whole lot here because it's so obvious. And we keep saying it over and over, and they keep making us the problem. The guns are the problem. They're always going to be the problem. They keep continuing to be the problem over and over again as we make no changes. It's not like we're making changes that don't work. Nope. We're not even trying to do anything different. Once again, a day's worth of thoughts and prayers as we move on to the next thing. It's heartbreaking, it's frustrating, but it's hard to even feel when you know nothing's going to change. We just have to brace for the next story like this that we'll get based on the calendar in the next 72 hours.
Man, I love when you say stuff like that and it's so potent and punchy, because those are the clips that go viral for us on our social media, man. I love them. So, and they're so impactful, and I think that they kind of provide a sobering moment for the people that would otherwise be arguing in our comments. All right, let's move on. Some entertainment news. Is the NFL to blame for Trump's presidency? Okay. A little bit of backstory. We have our show producer, Chris Thompson, set up a conversation with us and Stephen A. Smith. And so we were doing some research on Stephen A. Smith. I was. Q knows who he is and has met him several times. But and then I came across this neat little nugget here. And it got me to thinking, like, okay, this might work for this show. And this segment on the show. From what I understand, Stephen A. Smith is he's like a tell it like it is sort of a person, and he's compensated for that gift that he has to orate his feelings and his thoughts and provide some perspective that people may not be considering. I know all about that because I do the same thing. But I thought this was interesting, and I know you haven't heard this story yet, Q, so I'm excited to share it with you and get your thoughts here. But this is from the Atlanta Black Star. All right. A decade ago, Donald Trump took that infamous escalator ride that changed American politics forever. But according to ESPN's Stephen A. Smith, the real reason behind Trump's presidential ambitions might have been something far more personal: getting shut out of NFL ownership. Smith claimed on Front Office Sports that Trump's political trajectory was forged not in boardrooms or in campaign headquarters, but in the bitter aftermath of a failed billion-dollar sports deal. A decade ago, Donald Trump took that infamous escalator ride, and according to NBC News, Trump declared his net worth exceeded the $1.4 billion asking price but he only had access to approximately 1.1 billion at the time. That's it. Investment bankers at Morgan Stanley expressed skepticism about Trump's chances, with one executive noting that Trump had, quote, little chance of being approved by the NFL, unquote, due to his casino background and history with the rival USFL. Smith's account reveals the exact moment Trump's political ambitions crystallized. Quote, I knew Donald Trump. Donald Trump in 2014 called me personally. He wanted to buy the Buffalo Bills, unquote, Smith explained. Quote, the price tag was 1.4 billion. Hard to believe because the Dallas Cowboys right now are worth 13 billion, but that's how much the NFL has grown. According to my sources, he had 1.1 billion, unquote. Then came the pivotal declaration that would reshape American politics. Quote, Trump said to me, quote, if them MFs stand in my way and prevent me from getting ownership of the Buffalo Bills, talking about the league's owners, I'm going to get them all back. I'm going to run for president, unquote. When a clip of the interview was shared on FOS's Instagram, reactions poured in from users who found the narrative surprisingly plausible. Smith's account does not seem to factor in how Trump had expressed presidential ambitions long before 2014, as he was widely reported to have been considering a run in the 2012 race before he ultimately announced he would not run in that cycle. Trump's history with professional football extends far beyond the Bills situation, revealing a pattern of ambitious pursuits that often ended in disappointment. Okay. I don't know if you've ever heard of this before, Q. But yeah, your reflections here.
Man, I wish he would have bought the Buffalo Bills.
Right?
He'd be a failing businessman once again, and we'd be a sane democracy. Maybe we wouldn't be in peaceful harmony and bliss, but we also would not be in the belly of a fascist authoritarian dictatorship. Goodness gracious, life would be better if he was just an NFL owner. But to your question, no, this is not the first time I've heard this. And it's kind of like a cycle of things that all are like NFL based that fed the monster that is Donald Trump. Like they created the kid who came to burn the village down. You know what I mean? Like they rejected him. He went and honed his skills and came back and really led them into this space of what you and I have coined as, MAGA pre-compliance, right? They didn't just antagonize him, but they kind of created the monster that we have, like from Colin Kaepernick all the way to now with Charlie Kirk. The NFL definitely helped create this monster. So it wasn't even a direct reflection of his politics, Rams. It's like it helped like distort their views and his, right? And remember, Colin Kaepernick took a knee to peacefully protest police brutality. Silent, respectful, reverent, asking America to live up to its ideals, the promises that it made all of its citizens. For that decision, the league blackballed, demonized, and called him an SOB. Oh, sorry, that was the president that called him an SOB. The NFL folded, and ESPN echoed that outrage. Fast forward, Charlie Kirk spent years mocking those same protests, ridiculing anti-racism, calling social justice poison. He never kneeled for justice. He stood proudly with his chest out and loud for division. And when he meets his demise, as sad as it may be, the NFL and ESPN line up to honor him. Flags lowered, tributes aired, reverence poured out. The deeper irony is that long before politics, as you just outlined, he tried to buy a team and the league shut him out. That rejection created a bitter, angry, obsessed man. He's going to get his revenge. And when he finally got some power, he turned all of that bitterness into bullying, but not just against the NFL, against anyone who he ever felt slighted him or who he pre-hated, like Black people. He used the NFL as a punching bag, weaponized player protests, and built his brand by attacking black athletes who dared demand justice. So, what do we see, Rams? A black quarterback kneels for justice, erased. A white provocateur mocks justice, celebration, honor, reverence. A bitter man denied NFL ownership, used that grudge to climb to the White House. The NFL didn't just pre-comply and bow to Trump. They helped create him, this version of him anyway. And in doing so, they taught America that, as we see, truth tellers get punished, provocateurs, racist, divisionist, misogynist, xenophobes, they get honored. And, bullies, they get power.
I don't know much about the NFL stuff. This is very new to me, but I think that because you said the NFL is partially to blame for Trump's rise to the White House, and I think that you laid that out quite well. I think that the other part of it
introduced that idea. I just gave my opinion.
Sure, but I
the one that created that.
Yeah, but for me, I needed to hear you say that, because the other part, and I know you would say this, but the other part is I think Obama being in office, that infuriated Donald Trump to where he came up with the wildest conspiracy theories. Oh, well, he wasn't even born in America. He's the worst president, all this sort of stuff. And those
had more to do with the way his base responded, though.
Sure, maybe. But this was back before there was a base, a Trump base. You know what I mean?
Well, clearly not, though. He had to be talking to
somebody. Okay, that's a fair point. I'll take that. But I think that birther movement that he was at the helm of was really the response. And I have to say this because there's really no other way to say it. He just did that because Obama was black. That's the whole thing. And he didn't want to see someone black in the White House. I think that's it. I know that he's had issues with Joe Biden. I know that, but that Obama thing, it was just that. You know what I mean? His name is Barack Obama, and he's in the White House? Absolutely not.
Hussein
Obama. Thank you. So that, coupled with all this NFL stuff, I think that he became sort of the great representative of the white man's plight. And my heart breaks for these people who feel like everything's stacked against them, but it never has been. And Donald Trump has weaponized their frustration and played into those fears and caused them to become more racist and us all to become more divided as a result of that. So I think those two factors, I think you're right. That's really it. That's the primordial ooze of Donald Trump. But that's all the time we have for today here on the QR Code. Thank you for listening. We have some challenging conversations here, but you make it possible because you keep tuning in. As always, today's show is produced by Chris Thompson. If you have some thoughts you'd like to share, help us out. Use the red microphone talkback feature on the iHeartRadio app. And while you're there, you can hit subscribe and download all of our episodes. You can also help us out by subscribing to our social media at Civic Cypher, particularly on YouTube. We'd appreciate it. I've been your host. You can find me on all social media at Ramses Ja.
My handle, I am Q Ward on all social media as well.
And join us next time as we share our news with our voice from our perspective right here on the QR Code.